food pairings change a lot based on where we're selling, where we're shipping. In Italy, obviously, especially in our area, Prosecco is nearly a full meal style of wine. So you can drink it from an aperitif up to a first course for dessert. Let's say that ideally, Prosecco is an aperitif wine, is perfect to be paired with seafood, with first dishes that can be, I don't know, for example, grilled vegetable spaghetti, maybe some pasta with clams. So that can be an idea. Then when we switch to the sweeter versions, it becomes more of a dessert wine. Or it can be maybe in Asian countries paired with a more spicy style of food, a much richer intensity of aromas. So within the various styles, we managed to cover quite a vast array of foods.
Who wants to be the next Italian wine ambassador? Join an exclusive network of 400 Italian wine ambassadors across 48 countries. Vinitaly International Academy is coming to Chicago on October 19th to 21st, and to Almaty, Kazakhstan from November 16th to 18th. Don't miss out. Register now at vinitaly.com.
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we travel to the wine hills of Valdobbiadene in the Veneto to meet my guest Gianni Zucchetto, who is the export manager of Ruggeri Prosecco. Buongiorno, Gianni. Thanks so much for being my guest today. How are you, and is it a busy time in Valdobbiadene?
Hello, Mark. Thank you for having me, and hello to everybody listening. So I'm good. We're getting into the interesting phase of the year. We're getting close to harvest. We still have a couple of weeks ahead of us before we actually start the big part of harvest, but we already had the first few tractors coming in and unloading yesterday. So it's officially begun, but it's not still in full method.
Okay, so those are early ripening vineyards that you've brought in now because the grapes were just ripe?
Exactly, yes. But we're still talking about a very small percentages. The official date for the beginning of harvest is going to be the 9th of September.
Okay, so still a little bit of time, but then it's going to be all hands to the deck, the busiest time of the year.
Absolutely. So everybody's getting ready. You know, we have, obviously we have our own vineyards, but then we work with more than 100 suppliers around the Valdobbiadene area that bring us their grapes. So it's going to be hectic. It's going to be 3-4 hectic weeks, but it's the most interesting and the most buzzing period of the year. So everybody is looking forward to it.
Yes, I've been in Valdobbiadene at harvest time, and it's in a very exciting time. The smell in the air of the pressed grapes, the fermentation, the tractors coming and going. It's an amazing time. Now, Gianni, for our listeners who are located all around the world and who haven't been to Valdobbiadene, Conigliano, to these special wine hills, to this beautiful UNESCO World Heritage Site, can you describe visually what the countryside is like so our listeners can get a really vivid description?
Sure. So I'm actually looking out of the window now. So I'm actually seeing what I'm going to be talking about now. So we're in Valdobbiadene, which is in the northeast of Italy, in the Veneto region, more precisely in the province of Treviso. So we're on the northern part of the province of Treviso, which is where the flatlands finish and where the mountains begin. So we're in that hybrid hilly area where behind us we have flatlands all the way down to Venice and all the way down to central Italy. And from Valdobbiadene onwards, we have the pre-Alps, and then we have the actual Alps that begin and go all the way into Austria and then into Germany. So it's It's a very intriguing and interesting area to be. It's a very hilly area. We have hills that go from 100 to 600 meters above sea level. As you were mentioning, Valdobbiadene and Conegliano became UNESCO World Heritage in 2019. And I can assure you some of the views we have from some of the vineyards and some of the viewpoints in the area are amazing.
Yeah, it is really, of all of Italy's many, many beautiful winelands, it is one of the most beautiful. It's a place I always enjoy returning to. Now, Gianni, before we begin hearing the story of Ruggeri, can you tell us your own story? Are you from Valdobbiadene? Are you from the area? And how did you come to be doing the job you do as export manager?
Okay, so I'm not actually from Valdobbiadene. I was born in London, in the United Kingdom.
Oh, my.
Yeah, so my grandparents were from the Valdobbiadene area and moved to the United Kingdom after the Second World War, as there wasn't a lot of jobs in the area. So my family continued there. I was born there, but then we moved back to Italy when I was 5 years old. So all of my schooling was done here in Italy, in the areas just around Valdobbiadene. I studied high school, I studied university, I did translation and interpreting languages, let's say. And as soon as I finished university, I immediately started working in wineries. And that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years. So different positions, different wineries. And since the beginning of last year, the beginning of 2023, I've been following the whole of the export for Ruggeri Winery. So the 60 markets we sell to around the world, let's say I follow them directly.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's a big task as well, because I know that the Ruggeri Proseccos are, as you say, exported all around the world and popular all around the world.
Yes.
So it's keeping you very busy, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Now, can you tell us the story of Ruggeri then, of this company that's grown to be very important in the production of quality Prosecco Superiore DOCG?
Absolutely. So the history of Ruggeri is deeply rooted in the winemaking tradition of Valdobbiadene. If you look at ancient maps of the area, you actually see Case Bisoi, which means Bisol houses, right in the heart of the Cartizze area. The Cartizze area is the most prestigious area within the Valdobbiadene Prosecco production zone. As early as the mid-19th century, Eliseo Bisol and his son Luigi owned a winery in that area. Luigi was actually one of the first winemakers in Valdobbiadene. And then in the 1950s, Giustino Bisol founded this new winery together with his cousin, whose surname was actually Ruggeri. So even if our winery was created by the Bisol family, we actually have Ruggeri because that was the surname that was adopted as the brand for the company itself. And so in the early days, Ruggeri was one of the few producers around Valdobbiadene that was focusing on the production of sparkling wines. That's why they actually call us one of the founding 5 wineries in Prosecco. Today, Giustino's son, Paolo, and his granddaughter, Isabella, have taken the company forward with the same spirit and same ideas of their predecessors.
Okay, well, that's a very important to know the historical background, that this is a pioneering family, because the Prosecco boom has really happened in the recent decades, and we find Prosecco in large quantities all over the world. Certainly here in Britain, it's a hugely popular wine. But what I'd like to discuss before we focus in on the Ruggeri products, a little bit about what makes Prosecco Superiore DOCG from Conegliano Valdobbiadene so special and something a step above Prosecco DOC, which is made in much larger quantity.
Obviously, DOCG Valdobbiadene can be produced in the area, as the name says itself, of Valdobbiadene and or Conegliano. So we're talking about the original birthplace of this wine. So historically speaking, where we've had vineyards for centuries, and where these vineyards have the best temperature, soil, and climate to grow in the perfect way. So we're talking about an area which is perfect for the growth and the production of the Glera grapes that then produce Prosecco. Then obviously, as you were saying, Prosecco has boomed, especially in the last 10 years. So requests increase. Obviously, Valdobbiadene is a very small town. There's not an infinite amount of areas where you can grow this Glera grape. So it's been expanded into a more widespread DOC appellation. But if you're looking for the correct soil, correct temperature, correct climate, Valdobbiadene and Conegliano is where you need to be looking.
Okay, well, that's very good. Now, just a couple of more general points to cover for our listeners. What is special about the Glera grape for making sparkling wines? And can you briefly explain the Martinotti method?
Yeah, so Glera is a semi-aromatic grape and has a very good acidity to it. And these are two very important aspects to create a sparkling wine. That's why Glera it's the most suited grape to create this fresh, lively style of sparkling wine. The Martinotti method is two-phase fermentation. So we have a first fermentation, which is done immediately after harvest. So we're going to be making them very soon in a couple of weeks' time. And it's simply the transformation of the grape juice into a still white wine, Glera still white wine. Then, when needed, there is a second phase. They call it presa di spuma. So we get this still white wine, and we start a secondary fermentation that then gives the CO2, the typical bubbles, to the Prosecco and makes it a sparkling wine, a spumante wine. So it's two separate fermentations that transform the grape juice into a Prosecco.
Okay, and the Prosecco can then be bottled directly from the tank, maintaining all of its freshness.
Absolutely. So here in Ruggeri, everything is done on premise. So obviously, as I was saying before, we have harvest. We have our own vineyards, and then we have our suppliers bringing in their grapes. We press them here in the winery. We have 5 presses. Then we get the juice, we ferment it, we immediately ferment it. And once we have this still white wine, we lower temperature in the tanks and keep the wine there until it's needed. So what makes us slightly different from other producers is that we do not make a huge production in October, November, and that's it. We produce based on demand. So our bottling line, because we have one, works throughout the year, but only bottles what is needed, what is requested from the market. So whenever we need a specific version of our DOCG Prosecco, we do the secondary fermentation, as I was mentioning before, and then we bottle it directly from the tank, obviously with some filtering.
Okay, so that means, for example, the UK market, you would be sending over different batches through the year to meet the demand.
Absolutely.
And maintaining that real freshness, which is so important for Prosecco.
Exactly. So it's the UK is one of our biggest markets, as you can imagine, together with Germany and the United States. But yes, when you find a bottle of Ruggeri in the UK market, it's probably no more than 3-4 months old.
Okay.
So that's what we try to do, because we know it's a huge factor in the quality of the wine that gets into the market. So that's how we organize here in Ruggeri.
Okay, well, let's turn now to some of your main wines and indeed some of the categories of Prosecco that Ruggeri produces. I'd like to touch on some of your top wines, the Quartese Limitless. I'm fascinated to know more about the Rive wines and Cartizze. But let's start with your entry-level Prosecco Superiore DOCG. And on the label, are we looking for the name Valdobbiadene?
Yes, we are, absolutely. So in Ruggeri, we have roughly 14 different styles of Prosecco. And as I was saying before, we focus exclusively on this. So all of our wines are Glera based, and we focus only on sparkling wines. So that's a very important thing for our customers to know. We actually have 3 different lines. Let's say one, which is the DOC, but it's very limited. Then we have a DOCG line, which is called the Classics. And in this line, which is the OCG Conegliano Valdobbiadene, we can find 4 of the most sold Proseccos we have in all of the different allowed sugar contents for Prosecco. So we have an extra brut, an extra dry, and a dry, increasing in sugar content. Then we go up a notch and we go into what is our special selections, the wines that we're most known for. So we have Giustino B, which is probably our quality flagship around the world. We have Vecchie Viti, which is a wine in a very limited production, which is made exclusively using vines which are 80 or plus years old. Then we have, as you mentioned, Cartizze. Cartizze for us is actually very important because over the years we have acquired an increasingly central role in the Cartizze. And we actually handle more or less 12% of the grapes of the Cartizze cru. So for us, it's a very important segment.
Let's just talk a little bit about that Cartizze cru. Just explain to our listeners about this special hill, this special single vineyard site divided into many, many different owners.
Yes.
So you have a large percentage of that hill.
Yes. So we actually own as Ruggeri a couple of hectares within the Cartizze on one of the south-facing slopes. So it's actually one of the most prestigious areas in the Cartizze Valley. Then all the other grapes are sourced by our farmers, our local suppliers, with whom we work both for the Cartizze but also for the DOCG grapes. One thing I want to mention is that we have more than 100 suppliers of grapes from the Valdobbiadene area. Some of them we've been working for generations together. So we've literally been purchasing their grapes for the last 50, 60 years. So there's a very strong bond, very strong cooperation between Ruggeri and these growers, these farmers. And we actually have a person in the winery, an agronomist, which works for Ruggeri, but also goes among all of these growers to give suggestions, check quality, so that everything's aligned and we don't have any surprises during harvest. So talking about the Cartizze, it's, let's say, the Grand Cru of Prosecco. So we have a more generic DOC area, which is very big. Then we have a DOCG appellation, which is the Valdobbiadene Conegliano that we've been mentioning until now. And then there is a specific valley called the Cartizze Valley, which is next to Valdobbiadene, between Santo Stefano, Saccol, and San Pietro di Barbozza. It's one valley. It's 107 hectares in total, and as you were mentioning, it's divided between many, many producers. So nobody owns a large vineyard. It's like micro-fragmented, like you would have in Burgundy, just to give you an idea. And it's one of the most expensive vineyards in the world. So it's a very high-end, very important and historically recognized area for the production of wine.
Okay, let's just talk about that wine itself. So that Cartizze hill, and you were talking about the south slope. I've been on that hill, and it is so beautifully exposed. The grapes are really just fanned out to get every ray of sun, and the soil is so suited to the Glera grape that it produces a wine that has great prestige, and it's the name on the label will be Cartizze, won't it? It's not Prosecco or Prosecco Superiore prominent. The name that consumers look for is Cartizze. Now, what about the style of the wine itself?
So you are totally correct. Cartizze does not have the word Prosecco on the label. So it's Cartizze. It's a separate entity, and it's made to identify the highest level of them all. So Cartizze, as you were saying, is extremely hilly, extremely slopey. So our vineyard, which is, as I was saying, it's divided in 2 slots, and it's a total of 2 hectares, ranges from 200 to 500 meters. So it's extremely steep, and literally every plant itself has full exposition to the sunshine. This obviously is a great thing for the ripening of the fruit, but also for to keep the grapes dry and to avoid illnesses. Also, because being so steep and so difficult to grow, everything's done by hand. So everything from cutting the grass to harvesting, everything is done exclusively by hand, and they call it heroic viticulture because we're talking about slopes which can be 50 degrees. So it's actually even quite dangerous. So that's an interesting fact to keep in mind. The soil composition, this is very interesting because that used to be seabed. So millions of years ago, we used to have the sea in this area in the Cartizze Valley. Obviously, this is not the case at the moment, but this gives the soil a very high minerality. It's very common to find fossils everywhere in the area. When you just dig up, you'll find fossils, and we actually have quite a few in our vineyard. So Cartizze has a much higher minerality compared to other styles of Prosecco, other Prosecco di OCG.
Okay, and in terms of the level of sweetness, now you mentioned those 4 levels. That's, again, important for our listeners to understand: the extra brut, extra dry, and dry, increasingly in sweetness. That's always paradoxical that the dry is actually the sweetest. Now, Cartizze traditionally has been an extra dry. Is that correct?
Cartizze has been traditionally a dry version, so even sweeter.
Okay, even sweeter.
Yeah, it was a dessert wine. So we're talking about 20, 25 grams of sugar per liter. So we actually have 2 styles of Cartizze: a historical dry version that we still do up to today, which has 28 grams of sugar per liter. And then more recently, we introduced a brut version with 8 grams of sugar per liter, which is much more versatile and can be paired in an easier way with food. Let's say it's not exclusively a dessert wine, but it can be a more widespread style of wine.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting to hear how the style of Cartizze has evolved as well, perhaps to suit the changing markets or tastes.
Absolutely.
This is a good opportunity to discuss now Prosecco Superiore DOCG, Cartizze as well, and the gastronomy of your area. Really maybe bringing in some local foods, Gianni, but also I know as export manager, you're taking this wine to the Far East, you're taking wines to America, to the UK, to Germany. And so let's also focus a bit, after we hear about your local foods, on some international pairings.
Okay, so yeah, as you were mentioning beforehand, there is a swift in the style of Prosecco that's been consumed around the world, especially in the UK, where you're at, or in the US. We're experiencing a switch towards a drier style. So extra dry, so that's 12, 18 grams of sugar per liter still remains the biggest segment for Prosecco, but we are experiencing a switch towards a drier style, towards a brut style. So something around 9, 10 grams of sugar per liter. And this goes back to what I was saying beforehand about the Cartizze and the new style of wine we introduced a few years back. Obviously, food pairings change a lot based on where we're selling, where we're shipping. In Italy, obviously, especially in our area, Prosecco is nearly a full meal style of wine. So you can drink it from an aperitif up to a first course for dessert. Let's say that ideally, Prosecco is an aperitif wine, is perfect to be paired with seafood, with first dishes that can be, I don't know, for example, grilled vegetable spaghetti, maybe some pasta with clams or vongole. So that can be an idea. Then when we switch to the sweeter versions, so like when we're talking about a dry Prosecco that has this 28 grams of sugar per liter, it becomes more of a dessert wine. Or it can be maybe in Asian countries paired with a more spicy style of food, a much richer intensity of aromas. So within the various styles, we managed to cover quite a vast array of foods.
That's interesting, Johnny. I guess as your role as export manager and traveling around the world, when you're presenting wines to clients, you must be doing a lot of this over wonderful meals, I'm imagining, and different styles of food, and it must be very interesting to see how those different markets enjoy your wines and see them fitting in with their way of life as well as way of eating.
Absolutely. It's obviously our job has its downsides, but the upside is surely being able to travel the world and see and immerse yourself in different cultures and understand how diverse and how interesting the world is. And why not trying to bring some of our Italian lifestyle or Italian way of living to these customers, show them how we celebrate occasions with by uncorking a bottle of Prosecco, how we can pair it with some sort of foods that maybe they didn't think about beforehand. So yes, we're selling wine, but it's also a cultural experience, a cultural exchange. And that ties back to what I've studied at university. Everybody wants to exchange opinions and exchange culture.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And I guess for our listeners, one of the best ways to really immerse themselves in the world of Italian culture is by visiting the wine country. And Valdobbiadene Conegliano, this UNESCO heritage site, is, as I said at the beginning, one of the most beautiful winelands to visit. So let's turn a little bit now to the Ruggeri wine hospitality and what you can offer to our listeners who might find their way to you.
So that's a good question. Actually, Ruggeri and hospitality have always worked together. We're probably one of the first wineries to start a real hospitality program, meant that it's possible to book experiences online in order to make it easier for all of our foreign customers to understand what they can do, decide their own date, their own time. So obviously we offer tastings within the winery itself. We offer tours of the winery. We can take our customers up into the Cartizze vineyards, in our Cartizze vineyards. We can organize all different styles of experiences. So for us, the hospitality segment is very important. We have a team dedicated exclusively to that can speak many different languages. So we got rated as one of TripAdvisor's best activities in Valdobbiadene. So we actually have a lot of people coming by and getting to know Ruggeri and our style of Prosecco.
Okay. And what about, for example, I know you've got some wine and food experiences. What would that involve? What would you be offering?
Yeah, so there's two different styles. So first of all, our hospitality manager, Marco, organizes every couple of weeks or every couple of months some specific wine pairing dinners. So maybe it's a fixed date, a fixed hour. You come here and we do a vertical tasting of our Giustino B, because that's something we do very often with our Prosecco. We have different vintages and we let our customers taste the different vintages, the evolution of the wine, because all of our wines are made with that idea in mind. And each vintage is paired with a specific style of food or a specific Zucchetto. Those are the fixed events. Then instead, if you're passing by and you want to organize a tour at the winery, we can also get some lunch ready for you. We can organize something to eat together with the tasting, or if you need to do any style of event with your company, we can organize it. So we're very dynamic and open to all different kinds of opportunities.
Okay, well, that sounds great. And that sounds just the sort of thing that I know many of our listeners enjoy. It's the sort of thing I enjoy when I'm traveling around. So I'm sure that some people will make their way to you, and I look forward to visiting as well. Gianni, it's been really great catching up with you today, hearing your story, the Ruggeri story, and you've taken us to the world of Prosecco Superiore DOCG, Valdobbiadene. I know it's a long name, but I think it's important for people to understand that this top-level Prosecco comes from a very specific place. So thank you for taking us there, Gianni.
Thank you for your time, and we hope to see you all here very soon.
Grazie.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Please remember to like, share and subscribe right here or wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.